Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we will have our May garden tour. What you are looking at right now is a big oregano bush. This oregano plant has been growing in this spot for probably over 2 years. Here I am showing you the blue bachelor's buttons. I did not plant this year. These are all volunteer bachelor's button plants in my garden. Look at how beautiful these bachelor's button flowers are. The next plant that I would like to show you is the cilantro. So if we go down here near the base of the plant, you see familiar leaves, the cilantro. And since the temperature in my area has gone up, today we're gonna have 83 degrees Fahrenheit high temperature. My cilantro has bolted, and you can see all of this beautiful flower buds that are forming. Look at that, guys. So nice. And you can collect the seeds of cilantro. Next in here, in the same raised bed, is the dill. Let's go over here. There's a bigger dill plant. Now, I planted a couple of dill from seeds this year, but I have also seen some volunteers popping from the ground, like this one right here that's growing with the grass. And then over here, look at this one. I thought I lost all of the sage plants, but there are a couple of them that have started growing as soon as the weather started warming up. And so yes, to the beautiful sage in the garden. Here's another one. It's another oregano that is growing with a couple of thyme right there. And here's the other thyme. Another herb that is growing in my garden is this one right here. This thyme is also over 2 years old, but I moved this thyme probably 4 weeks ago to this spot, moved it away from the giant oregano bush right there. Another plant that I am so happy about this year is the strawberry. I mean, I have a lot of strawberries in my garden, and they have been producing for over a month now. We still have a lot of strawberries in my garden. Now, many of them are planted in raised beds. And if you can see, look at this. There are lots of ripe strawberries underneath all of these leaves. Isn't that amazing? This in here is the oldest strawberry bed that I have. This bed is 2 years old, so I'm gonna be replanting. Well, I have replanted a couple of raised beds, and still with their age, you can still see big strawberries. Look at this one, guys. Look at how big this strawberry is. Looks so yummy. No damage in it. I've seen a bunch of birds earlier. They have eaten some, but I don't mind sharing my harvest with the birds. I mean, they can come here as long as they leave some for me. I'm fine with that. And I mean, there are a lot of ripe strawberries underneath this plant. So the birds are welcome to come as long as they save some for me. This is a newer bed that has the strawberries as well, and you can see a couple of wire baskets that have brick on top of them. So we've experimented on using those to protect them. And yes, they protect the fruit very well. Oh, this is one that was eaten by the bird. That's okay. But I mean, if you have so many strawberries, I think the best option would be some kind of a netting. This is one type of netting that you can use. And underneath here we have a few strawberries that are very red and ready for harvest. Look at that. There you are. Here they are inside, waiting for me to get them. And birds are totally out of this raised bed. They cannot touch my strawberries inside here. If you don't have a lot of room for your garden, you can grow your strawberries vertically. The one that you're looking at is a 10-tier tower made of the stackable planters that I got from Dollar Tree. Look at this. Amazing strawberries. With regard to the size of the strawberries that I harvested from this tower are a little bit smaller than the ones I got from the raised bed or from the ground, but that is okay. With this one, really, the berries are already clean. There are a lot of red ones here, guys. Look at that. Just look at that. Underneath all of these leaves, and some more right here. Let's just go around this strawberry tower. Oh, there's a big one on top. Look at that, guys. This is a good one too. No damage at all. We're just looking at the back side of the strawberry tower now. The only problem with this tower is it gets dry quickly. So you have to water it at least once a day. For now, I water it once a day. Probably next month, I will water this in the morning and in the evening. Our next stop is my salad bed. I have here some pak choy cabbage, but because of the fluctuations in temperatures, the pak choy cabbage has bolted, and you can see the flowers. And look at this, the seed pods of the pak choy cabbage. Over here, guys, you see all of this beautiful lettuce. I have been harvesting lettuce for my salad for a few weeks now. And then over here we have kale. Now this raised bed is covered with a netting, and you can see how beautiful the kale leaves are. Look at that, guys. Now this whole row is kale, and then here you can see those strawberries I was trying to show you earlier, right there. And then some gourmet lettuce here, different color, and then some other lettuce. I think these are all the ones that came from the gourmet lettuce packaging. And then here's one that's red, another one that's red, and then we have some volunteer plants here, zinnia, and some tomatoes that I need to move. And then here, let's take a look. We have some more pak choy. I've harvested a few from this, but then they eventually bolted. I almost forgot to show you this one, guys. This is the only broccoli that survived from all of the broccoli seedlings that I planted earlier in the spring. Another thing that is worth mentioning in my garden is the raised bed full of onions. I planted 2 kinds of onions in this bed before my last frost date. I want to show you this raised bed full of garlic. These garlic plants were planted in this bed about late January, early February of this year because I missed the fall planting. They're actually looking great. I mean, most of them are. The others are tiny, but that's okay. We got some huge plants. And in my area, I usually harvest my garlic around June or July. They're looking great for now. Another crop that I can grow in my Zone 7A Kentucky garden before my last frost date is potato. So this raised bed is for my potatoes. Now this is the second batch of potatoes that I have planted. This came from the clearance sale at Walmart. I got a bag of potatoes for $1 each, so I got 10 bags, and I still have some that need to be planted for the third batch. So you can see here, this is a different color. If you can see, that color is kind of like a purple color in the middle of the leaves. This one is the purple potato, and then yellow potatoes, and the brown ones are the ones that are just like green leaves, pure green leaves. So yeah, we have a bunch of potatoes in this raised bed. And then I put 2 rows of onions on the side of that raised bed, which is next to the trellis. And the reason for that is that I can pull these onions anytime and use them for cooking whenever I need this side to grow my cucumbers. Also, I would like to show you the volunteers in this raised bed. Now last year I planted 3 geranium kiss tomatoes, and tomatoes are just popping all over this raised bed. It's crazy. Now they will not go to waste because gardeners like me and you like to plant extra, and we don't want to kill our plants. So here are the volunteers. And also guys, look at this one. This little plant is not a weed. This one is a Malabar spinach. So I'm just gonna let it grow in that spot. I'm not even gonna move it. There were a couple of Malabar spinach plants in here last year. Actually, I found another Malabar spinach volunteer right there. So that is pretty cool. They can take over this raised bed after I have harvested the potatoes and the onions. Speaking of volunteers, we have here a volunteer peanut plant next to the potatoes. Now these potatoes are part of the second batch of potatoes that I planted. And then over here, now you can see this lettuce plant. It has bolted. And this one is the first volunteer lettuce that I saw in my garden. It's really amazing. We've been eating lettuce from this plant, and it does not stop providing us with yumminess. Here's a little marigold, also a volunteer. And this is what I like about this raised bed, because I mean there are a lot of surprises popping out of this raised bed. Here's a carrot plant, and then on this end, because it's not filled with strawberries yet, I have planted a few onions. So part of the second batch of onions that I planted. Your surprise does not end here, because in this path you can see another lettuce plant, and it has grown so big already. I might have to harvest this plant today because I need to do something with the path, like put some cardboard on the path. But yeah, that is an amazing surprise. And there are carrots. Let me show you guys. Now, I have not done anything to this part of the garden yet, but you can see a carrot plant. There are actually carrots all over my garden. Zinnias as well, and some marigold. Look at that. Nice. And then over here, here's another bigger carrot. Well, speaking of carrots, we have a bunch of carrots in here. You can see that row, and many of them have bolted. I'm gonna let them produce flowers and seeds, but not all of them, because these rows will be planted with green beans this year. This is the back part of the garden that I used for planting corn last year. So this is where I planted all of those yummy sweet corn. Now we have 4 rows of carrots. There are some empty spots because we have been harvesting carrots from this part of my garden, and believe it or not, these carrots were planted last fall. They did not grow much because we got our freeze early on, but now we've been harvesting them, and now that it has gotten a little bit warmer, they have bolted. Like this one is fixing to produce a flower. I still have some cool weather plants that are growing here, like this snow pea plant. So we have a couple of snow peas on this side, and then a couple of them on the other side of this trellis. I see a flower right here and a couple of flowers from the other one. And here's the little pea plant. So they're gonna climb through this trellis, which is a good thing. Now this raised bed that you see is planted with potatoes. Now this is the first batch of potatoes from my harvest last year that started sprouting in my basement. So I saved them up. They became leggy, but I still decided to just put them in a raised bed and see what happens. So they've grown bigger now. And look at this. Actually, one of them has started making flowers. And then that will eventually turn into a fruit that you're not supposed to eat, because the fruit of the potatoes is toxic. I love having a lot of flowers in my garden, and this big bush that you see is, I believe, Shasta Daisy. 1-year-old plant. I planted it later in the season last year. It did not produce any flowers, but I can see now, look at that, flower buds everywhere. Derby Day is when we usually put our warm weather plants in the garden. Some people do it on Mother's Day, some on Memorial Day. Now this raised bed is filled with this amazing peppers. I planted some Keystone resistant, bell peppers, purple beauty peppers. There's Yolo Wonder, Jimmy Nardello. I just mixed them up in here. I did not label them anymore because whenever I see the fruits, I'm gonna know what they are anyway. And look at this, guys. I was kind of hesitant to plant them very early because we were getting low temperatures, like low 40s after I planted this, and I thought they were not gonna survive. But look at that, lots of flower buds on this plant, and I can see that some of them are also starting to form flower buds. So this is gonna be the first peppers that will produce in my garden. They're even earlier than my tomatoes because I planted my tomatoes much later than my peppers this year, which I don't usually do because peppers like warm temperatures. But since I already had the peppers ready and I did not have room inside my house to keep them, I decided to put them in the ground and see what happens. And I guess I got lucky this time that they did really good. I did not lose any plants from the low temperatures that we got. I mean, they survived. Here's another earth bed that was planted with a few pepper plants. I have not mulched it yet, but I will do the mulching today. But yeah, they are looking really great as well. These peppers are doing so amazing. Speaking of warm weather plants, I have here 4 rows of tomatoes. Now this one is San Marzano. These tomatoes have been in here for over a week. And they are looking good. Look at that. So I have 10 San Marzano tomatoes in each row, or in this row I mean. And then over here I have the Roma tomatoes. They looked so sad before I planted them in the ground because I left them in my carport even if it was cold, but they eventually survived and now they look very beautiful. This is a new variety of tomato that I tried this year. This is called Castrali, and this is supposed to be a 3-pounder, and I am excited for that. There's a little problem with this because the top of the seedlings are curled. Some of them I snapped, and then like with this one I can probably just snap the top of it because it has a sucker that's growing in here, and I've done that with some of them like this one here, and it has grown a couple of new suckers that are looking good. So I'm not sure if it had something to do with the potting soil that I used for these seedlings, but that is possible. Banana plant has been planted here in the back. This is a new spot. I have a couple of grape plants. I just love perennials, guys. Grapes are looking great. This is a 2-year-old plant. So I'm hoping to see some produce from this plant this year. If not, maybe next year we can get some. And there's another one on the other end of this trellis. Let's go over there. This one right here is a volunteer sunflower. And then here is the other grape plant. The leaves are growing really big. We are back to the side of my chicken coop, and look at this couple of plants growing in here, guys. Couple of volunteers. I don't know what kind of tomatoes they are, but I will know for sure here in a few weeks because these plants have set out some flowers already. I initially planned on moving these plants to a different spot, but they've gotten so big really quick as soon as the weather warmed up and they started putting out some flowers. So yeah, they're gonna stay in that spot. I can see that the chickens have been eating the leaves that they can reach, so that's okay. I guess the chickens will leave me some of the fruits because they can't reach all of them. Hello, chickens! In this spot, we have a couple of blueberry plants that I showed you in my previous video. Sunshine and the emerald blueberry. That's the blue crop. I don't think it's gonna grow. If it does, then that's gonna be really amazing. Over here, guys, look at this. Ta-da! Moringa. 1-year-old moringa. I kept this in my basement all winter. It's nice to have overwintered moringa actually, because now look at that. There are some leaves that are growing already, and soon, or maybe here in a couple of weeks, these leaves are ready for harvest, can be added to soup. We have a bunch of zinnias. These are the pink zinnias because last year I had pink zinnias growing in this pot, and there's more right here. I'm just gonna let them grow in this pot again. More volunteers in here. Zinnia, some tomato volunteers. They look like, I thought they were cherry tomatoes, but they can be a different kind. A marigold plant. The tulips are dying back, and then the daffodils that I planted early this year. Another volunteer marigold right here. And this is just lined up with flowers and a lot of volunteer zinnia plants, and also some volunteer marigold. Here is another zinnia that already has a flower bud, and here's another one in here. Right here you can see this plant. This is a chayote squash, and there's another chayote squash that I planted on the other side of the trellis. A volunteer marigold that already has a flower. These are the volunteer zinnias that I got from the grass before my husband mowed the yard yesterday, because I don't want them to be mowed over. And then the volunteer marigold that I also saved yesterday, they will be planted today. I like direct seeding my squash. So here we see a couple of zucchini squash. Here's another summer squash. I think this one is a crookneck. Now this pot has a ginger, that squash, but it has not grown yet. And then we have a couple of the green zucchini squash in here. And then another ginger bachelor's button volunteer, and another squash right here. Here's another volunteer sunflower, and look at this beautiful flower tower that I created, guys. Look at that. Super nice. The plants have grown a lot bigger and thicker now. This is a 6-tier flower tower that I made for pollinators, and it is a thriving garden. Just like my strawberry tower, this flower tower needs to be watered once a day. Now this one is deeper than my strawberry planters, but still you have to water it once a day. We also have the asparagus in this bed, and I believe I have shown you this one in my previous tour. They've grown so tall now. And then over here we have a tiny lemongrass. It is definitely not too late to start a garden. It's still May, and you can plant a lot of things. Direct seed the squash, watermelon, plant some potatoes if you like them, and some other vegetables that you like growing, and even fruits. That's gonna be all for today. Thank you for watching, and happy gardening.